Guided by the fur trade, France established New France on the continent of North America. It decided that the settler colonization of the St. Lawrence River Valley would feed Courrier des Bois, French fur trappers, as they enabled France to run most of New France through exploitive colonization. The new French province of Canada went from the St. Lawrence inland, from whence the French found the Mississippi River Valley. To the east, they established Illinois. To the west, Louisiana. Louisiana split into Upper Louisiana upriver and Lower Louisiana downriver. Lower Louisiana would become a plantation economy on the Caribbean model. In Illinois and Upper Louisiana, the exploitive colonialism of the French was administered by forts. Courrier des Bois received payments and supplies from forts and turned over pelts and other valuable items acquired from the Indians. Since supplies from the St. Lawrence were hard to come by, Courrier des Bois were often paid with farmland around the fort on top of other pay. Indian women, the wives of the Courrier des Bois, worked the farms and could retreat to the sanctuary of the forts in case of danger. The children resulting were called half-breeds in what became the USA and Métis in what became Canada. In the USA, the federal government, rather than encourage the half-breeds to cluster around strategic forts, had Indian tribes cede land for half-breed reserves on the side, in addition to ceding land to the federal government. With the half-breeds out of the way, white settlers were allowed to buy land from them, while half-breeds were allowed to look for work in centers of the white settlers. Thus, the USA assimilated and dismantled half-breed reserves even more so than actual tribal reserves. In Canada, the Hudson Bay Company took over where the French government left and sending French-speaking Courrier des Bois to cede the land with Métis communities. Given their presence outside Quebec, the Canadian federal government did not recognize the French land law by which the Métis claimed their land. The Canadian federal government would wage the Métis wars to dispossess them, and though they won, they would not assimilate and dismantle the Métis communities like the American federal government did to their half-breeds. Instead, the Métis and the Quebecois would ally on the basis of outrage due to the discrimination of English-speaking elites to French-speaking minorities. Indeed, the Métis, so empowered, would maintain their communities and communal rights, even assimilating the offspring of English and Scots with Indians, offspring far less protected by their paternal communities. The northern edge of New France was Canada. Canada was seized by Britain from France in the 7 Years' War. After the American Revolution, Britain resettled United Empire Loyalists in various regions in Acadia and Canada. In Canada, they were concentrated in Upper Canada, although an overflow of them also populated Lower Canada. In turn, Lower Canada was divided between an Anglophone, English-speaking, population that viewed the British Empire as their society and a Francophone population that looked to Quebec City as the starting point of their society. Since Britain had separated the Canadas to please these Quebecois, they would rename Lower Canada as Quebec, even though a rail line and a canal going around a local waterfall would make Montreal a commercial hub that outgrew Quebec City and that would be made the provincial capital instead. As the provinces of Lower and Upper Canada obtained distinct names, Upper Canada became Ontario. A move to fend off the Americans would, however, unite Ontario and Quebec with other provinces obtained from Acadia and the Hudson Bay Company. This set of provinces would form a dominion, autonomous land under the British Empire. Later, the British Empire would make itself legally equal to its former dominions. These, the ones accepting the British monarch as theirs, would be dominions of the British Commonwealth, members like the empire itself of the Commonwealth. The result was that the Constitution was the supreme authority in Canada, subject only to review in London. 50 years later, the government in London accepted a revision ending its reviewing authority. This was in the 1980s.